Hej och välkomna till NTD Nyheter. Jag heter Dan Alfjorden. Här är våra rubriker. Rapport: miljardärer finansierar pro-palestinska protester. Trump måste betala $9,000 för att han bröt mot yttrandeförbud 9 gånger. Vi får en analys. Biden undertecknade lagförslaget gällande TikTok. Vad händer härnäst? Brittiska män som anklagas för att ha spionerat för Kina beviljas borgen. NTDs specialserie om kommunismen fortsätter, denna gång om socialismens spridning i Europa. Enligt rapporter finansieras anti-israeliska demonstranter på universitetscampus med pengar som kan spåras tillbaka till miljardärer, däribland George Soros.
New York Post rapporterar att många av tältstäderna på universiteten organiseras av den Soros-finansierade organisationen Students for Justice in Palestine. Och den amerikanska kampanjen för palestinska rättigheter betalar studenter tusentals dollar var för att organisera aktiviteter, även med pengar som kommer från George Soros. Stora pengar till protesterna kommer också från en fond som drivs av David Rockefeller Jr. enligt New York Post. Han är en av den 4:e generationens medlem av Rockefellers oljedynasti. En annan finansiär är den tidigare Wall Street-bankiren Felice Gelman. Hon har dedikerat sin förmögenhet åt att finansiera pro-palestinska ändamål. I vissa fall döljs finansieringskällan eftersom pengarna slussas genom flera olika ideella organisationer innan det når studentgruppen som organiserar protestaktioner.
Före detta president Trump måste betala $9,000. Domaren i rättegången gällande Trumps kampanjs finansiering av hyschpengar fann att han bröt mot sitt yttrandeförbud 9 gånger. Domaren bötlägger den tidigare presidenten med $1,000 för varje överträdelse. Trump måste också ta bort 7 inlägg från Truth Social och de 2 från sin kampanjwebbplats innan 30 april. Domaren avvisade argumenten från Trumps försvarsteam och slog fast att återpublicering på sociala medier är stödjande i åtalet. Domaren hotade att sätta Trump i fängelse om han bryter mot yttrandeförbudet igen. Tiffany Meyer på NTD Evening News intervjuade den 30 april Janice Hissel, reporter på The Epoch Times, som var med på rättegången.
Trump's gag order in the New York criminal trial is Janice Hissel, reporter at The Epoch Times. She did a special report on the gag order recently and spoke with many legal experts. Janice, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you again. Now, bring us up to speed on what happened in court today and Trump's response.
Well, the judge did issue that $9,000 fine. That was $1,000 for each of 9 Truth Social posts that the judge thought violated his order. Now, 5 of those 7 posts were made by the former president himself, and 2 were by his campaign. And most of those focused on his ex-lawyer, Michael Cohen, who is considered a key witness in the case. Now, the judge ordered these posts to be removed today, and I did check, and it does look like that all of those posts were removed. If the former president and his staff did not remove those posts, he was looking at possibly being thrown in jail.
And Janice, how are people reacting to the judge's decision to hold Trump in contempt?
Supporters of the former president are actually reposting screenshots of these forbidden posts saying, hey, these are the posts that the judge doesn't want you to see. So that's kind of an interesting reaction there. And legal analyst Jonathan Turley, he has pointed out several apparent contradictions in this judge's order. For example, the judge says, on one hand, hey, it doesn't look like any other courts have ruled whether a simple reposting of someone else's words or an article violates a gag order. And normally under these circumstances, Mr. Turley said that the judge would issue a clarifying order, but instead he issued punishment. And finally, President Trump himself made a statement after court today. He said he was honored to be the Republican nominee, but it's terrible and unconstitutional to restrict his speech under these circumstances. In fact, he called this situation a disgrace.
Now, the gag order itself has been subject to a lot of debate. What is that debate about?
Mainly, that debate centers on 2 controversies. Is it fair or is that order unconstitutional? The fairness of it is being debated because it is a one-sided order. Now, normally when judges issue a gag order to restrict people's speech in any kind of a criminal or civil case, the idea is that it's generally applied to all parties, prosecution, defense, and any witnesses or anybody connected to the case in any way. This order, however, focuses only on President Trump and his team, not on the prosecution. So the fairness is very much debatable here because it allows his critics, such as Mr. Cohen, his former lawyer, to go out and say whatever he wants publicly, and President Trump is pretty much stuck and just can't respond. Now, on the constitutional question, that is, one of the biggest things that makes it a huge question here is that this is happening in the context of a presidential election, which has ramifications for our entire nation. And so that is another huge reason this is being debated.
Given all that you just laid out, how is the judge justifying his order?
This all came about because the prosecutors complained that Trump has intimidated people, they say, with his social media posts. They say that, they're expressing concern that witnesses might be reluctant to participate in the trial. And the judge said, okay, so I'm going to tailor this order narrowly to protect President Trump's free speech rights while protecting the integrity of the criminal process.
On that note, could the gag order be reversed?
Yes, President Trump's lawyers have appealed, and also an independent New York lawyer who has no connection to Trump or his team. He's just a concerned citizen who happens to be an attorney in New York. He has filed a challenge, and I believe that's due for a hearing next week. He argues that any gag order must be tied to an effort to protect someone's constitutional rights. Usually, it's the right of the defendant to a fair trial, and it's going against the prosecution from making all kinds of statements in the public that could taint the jury pool. But Judge Marchand's order makes no such linkage, according to this lawyer, and he says it's just to further the state's interest in the fair administration of justice. But the problem with that is that claim could be made about virtually any scenario. And so this could possibly encourage prosecutors to start trying to seek gag orders against whoever might be in front of a judge. And that could pose a concern for every American. In fact, one expert I talked to told me this is much bigger than Trump.
Janice Heisel, reporter at the Epoch Times, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
President Biden undertecknade lagförslaget gällande TikTok den 24 april. Lagförslaget ger TikToks kinesiska moderbolag ByteDance 270 dagar på sig att sälja appen. Underlåtenhet att göra det kommer att leda till att TikTok avlägsnas från appbutikerna i hela USA. Men att sälja TikTok kan vara lättare än sagt än gjort. Lagstiftare säger att lagförslaget är avsett att bryta TikToks band till Kina istället för att blockera användare från att komma åt det.
We're not wanting to kill TikTok. You in the US who like it, you can use it. We're just going to get the nefarious hand of the Chinese Communist Party out of our open media system.
TikToks vd lovar att stoppa lagförslaget, handla upp en video på plattformen direkt efter att Biden hade undertecknat lagförslaget.
Rest assured, we aren't going anywhere.
Den nya lagstiftningen innebär att klockan tickar för TikToks framtid i USA. Tidsfristen för appens kinesiska bolag att sälja den är satt till den 19 januari nästa år. Men president Biden kan förlänga förfallodagen med ytterligare 90 dagar. Men det är bara om han anser att det görs framsteg mot att avyttra TikTok. Så är det ens möjligt att sälja appen. TikToks moderbolag ByteDance är ett kinesiskt teknikföretag och lyder under kinesisk lag. Den centrala frågan är TikToks algoritm. Den speciella strategi som appen använder för att locka 170 miljoner amerikanska användare. Kinesiska analytiker menar att en försäljning av TikTok skulle innebära en export av den kraftfulla teknologin, vilket Peking sannolikt kommer att blockera.
As it relates to China, they should allow it, right? They should allow it to be sold. We believe that it is possible. There are already American investors who are willing and are interested in buying TikTok.
En affärskonsult sa: i Kina kan företag inte gå samman och avyttra utan godkännande från de kinesiska myndigheterna. Vad händer om TikTok inleder stämningar mot den amerikanska lagen? Den nya lagen kan komma att pausas under de juridiska striderna, vilket kan innebära åratals tills ärendet är avslutat. Men om en domstol vägrar att bevilja TikTok ett tillfälligt förbudsföreläggande måste företaget följa lagen. Vi zoomar ut igen. Om man misslyckas med att separera appen från Kina innebär det att alla amerikanska användare kommer att stängas av från appen. Och den kommer att tas bort från alla amerikanska appbutiker och stängas av från internettjänster som stöder den. Bidens kampanj är fortfarande aktiv på appen och har lagt upp minst en video efter att han undertecknade lagförslaget som kan få bort den.
TikTok bryter tystnaden rörande amerikanska ultimatumet som säger att de måste byta ägare, och görs det inte så tas appen bort från amerikanska appbutiker. Detta enligt en ny lag som har som mål att skilja appen från dess kinesiska inflytande. Torsdagen den 25 april avslog TikToks ägare ByteDance planerna på att sälja. Efter att rapporter dykt upp utforskade man försäljningen av TikToks amerikanska verksamhet. Detta är det första officiella svaret från det Peking-baserade företaget i frågan sedan president Biden undertecknade ett lagförslag som kan leda till att appen tas bort från appbutikerna över hela landet. Enligt gällande lag måste TikTok hitta en ny ägare senast i mitten av januari 2025. Men TikToks vd sa att företaget skulle bekämpa lagen. Hittills har ett antal länder förbjudit tjänstemän att ladda ner TikTok på sina telefoner. Den amerikanska lagen är nu en av de mest omfattande åtgärderna som vidtagits hittills. Indien förbjöd TikTok helt 2020. 2 brittiska personer som anklagas för att spionerat för Kinas räkning har släppts mot borgen. De framträdde första gången i en domstol i London den 26 april. De 2 anklagas för att ha tillhandahållit information till Kina mellan 2021 och 2023. En av dem är Christopher Cash, forskare vid brittiska parlamentet. Han har arbetat med kända lagstiftare inklusive Alicia Keys som nu leder det inflytelserika Foreign Affairs Committee, utskottet för utrikesfrågor. Den andra är Christopher Barry som enligt rapporter är akademiker. De åtalades den 22 april, samma dag som Tyskland grep 3 personer för spioneri för Kinas räkning. Detta sker just innan den kinesiska ledaren Xi Jinpings besök i Europa i maj. De misstänkta britterna har inte gjort några medgivanden. För närvarande får de inte resa utanför Storbritannien eller kontakta varandra. De ska infinna sig för en preliminär förhandling i början av maj. Socialistinternationalen växte fram ur den andra internationalen som Engels grundade 1889. När den andra internationalen grundades fanns över 100 politiska partier världen över som hade sin grund i marxismen. Av dem var 66 socialistiska och socialdemokratiska regeringspartier i sina respektive länder. Namnet Socialistinternationalen kom 1951 efter andra världskriget. Vi kommer här att visa 10:e delen Infiltration i väst i NTDs specialserie Hur kommunismens spöke styr världen. Filmen är baserad på boken How the Spectre of Communism is Ruling Our World.
Eight. Political correctness. The devil's thought police. Communist countries practice strict control over speech and thought. However, since the 1980s, another form of speech and thought control has appeared in the West. Thought police use the banner of, quote, political correctness to run amok in the media, society, and education system, using slogans and mass criticism to restrain speech and thought. Even though many have already felt the evil power of this control, they have not grasped its ideological origins. Phrases such as political correctness, together with progress, and solidarity have long been used by communist parties. Their superficial meaning is to avoid using language that is discriminatory towards minorities, women, the disabled, and others. For example, black people are to be called African Americans, American Indians are to be called Native Americans, illegal immigrants are to be called undocumented workers, and so on. However, the hidden implication behind political correctness is to classify individuals into groups according to their victim status. Those who are the most oppressed should, therefore, be accorded the most respect and courtesy. This judgment, rendered solely on one's identity and disregarding individual conduct and talent, is the basis of what's called identity politics. This style of thinking is extremely popular in the United States and other Western countries. According to such logic, black lesbians, who are oppressed along vectors of race, sex, and sexual preference, are ranked at the forefront of victimhood. At the other extreme, white heterosexual males are considered the most privileged and, in the logic of victim politics, should be at the bottom of the totem pole. This type of classification is identical to what goes on in communist countries, where individuals were classified within the, quote, 5 classes of red or the, quote, 5 classes of black, according to their wealth and class status before the revolution. The Chinese Communist Party eliminated and oppressed landowners and capitalists because of their, quote, wrong class status, attacked intellectuals as the, quote, stinking old ninth, and chanted that, quote, the poor are the smartest, the nobles the dumbest. For complex historical reasons, including social and individual reasons, some groups have a lower political and socio-economic position, which cannot be simply explained as oppression. But political correctness draws an artificial boundary in people's minds. It sets up an extreme, you're either with us or against us code of morality, where subscribing to political correctness is considered to be moral, while those who dissent are accused of being racist, sexist, homophobic, anti-Islam, and so on. Universities, which should promote a culture of free expression, have become prisons for the mind. The world is silenced and unable to openly and sincerely grapple with a number of issues in politics, economics, and culture. In the name of political correctness, some organizations work to further push traditional religion out of the public sphere. Furthermore, some countries have expanded the definition of, quote, hate speech and implemented this expanded definition in law, thus using the law to force schools, media, and internet companies to conform. This is a step toward the same strictures on speech as found in communist states. After the 2016 U.S. presidential election, the United States became further divided. Protest marches erupted in major cities, and violations of freedom of speech occurred with greater frequency. In September 2017, an appearance by conservative author Ben Shapiro, who had been invited to speak at the University of California, Berkeley, was derailed due to Antifa's threats of violence. Berkeley police stood ready and dispatched 3 police helicopters. The security measures were estimated to have cost more than $600,000. A reporter asked a young student protester, "What about the First Amendment?" To which the student replied that it was no longer a relevant document. Ironically, one signature event that marked the start of the student movement in 1964 was a fight for freedom of speech at Berkeley. These days, the left uses the right to speech in its attempts to deprive others of having a legitimate outlet for their own voice. In March 2017, American social scientist Charles Murray was invited to speak at Middlebury College in Vermont. While there, he was physically assaulted and an accompanying professor at the college was injured. In March 2018, tenured professor Amy Wax of the University of Pennsylvania School of Law was relieved of some teaching duties after publishing a politically incorrect article. Other organizations, acting under the banner of opposing hate speech, have labeled regular conservative groups as hate groups. In addition, there have been cases of conservative authors and scholars being threatened about speaking at or attending various events. The intrusion on freedom of speech by the left is not part of normal debate between people with differing ideas. Instead, it's about the specter of communism, using people with ill intent, provoking them to obscure the truth and suppress righteous, or at least normal, voices. Political correctness, in essence, is about substituting deviant political and moral standards for righteous ones. It is the devil's thought police. 9. The spread of socialism in Europe. The Socialist International grew from the Second International, founded by Engels in 1889. When the Second International was established, there existed more than 100 political parties around the world that were founded on Marxism. Of them, 66 were ruling parties that adhered to socialism in their respective countries. The name Socialist International originated in 1951 after World War II, and the organization consisted of social democratic parties from around the world. There are socialist parties descended from the Second International everywhere in Europe, with many of them even becoming ruling parties. The early socialists included Lenin, who encouraged violent revolution, and people like Karl Johann Kautsky and Edward Bernstein, who promoted progressive reform. Within the Socialist International, socialist democracy and democratic socialism have been almost identical. They both promote the idea that socialism is the new system that will replace capitalism. Currently, the Socialist International consists of more than 160 organizations and members. It is the largest international political organization in the world. The European Socialist Party, active in the European Parliament, is also an ally of the Socialist International. Its members are the social democratic parties of the EU and surrounding countries. It was established in 1992, and its members can be found in most leading European organizations, including the European Parliament, the European Commission, and the European Council. As of now, the European Socialist Party has 32 member parties from 25 countries of the EU and Norway, as well as 8 associate members and 5 observers, for a total of 45 political parties. It engages in an immense range of activities. The main objectives claimed by the European Socialist Party itself are to strengthen the socialist and social democratic movement within the EU and throughout Europe, and to develop close cooperation between member parties, parliamentary groups, and the like. Essentially, it works to vigorously promote the socialist cause. The Swedish Social Democratic Party, the ruling party of Sweden, openly claims that it uses Marxism as its theoretical guide. During the several decades under its rule, it promoted the socialist ideologies of equality and welfare. Portraits of Marx and Engels still hang in the party's halls today. The guiding principles of the UK's Labour Party are based on Fabian socialism. As discussed earlier, Fabian socialism is simply another version of Marxism, but one that stresses using gradual methods to effect the transition from socialism to communism. It also advocates high taxes, high welfare benefits, and other socialist ideas. The Labour Party has been the ruling party of England many times in recent decades, and always advocated Fabian socialist ideas. The British Communist Party has also been very active in trying to influence British politics, even running its own newspaper, the Morning Star. The party was established in 1920, and during its peak, its members were elected to the House of Commons. At the start of recent elections in England, the British Communist Party suddenly announced that it intended to support the leading left-wing politician of the Labour Party. One important member of the Labour Party has spent 40 years promoting socialism and the nationalization of assets. In September 2015, he became head of the Labour Party, with an overwhelming lead of 60%. When a BBC reporter inquired about his views on Marx, he praised Marx as a great economist and a, quote, fascinating figure who observed a great deal and from whom we can learn a great deal. The Socialist Party is France's largest center-left political party and a member of the Socialist International and Party of European Socialists. Its presidential nominee was elected to lead the country in 2012. Italian veteran communist Antonio Gramsci not only founded the Communist Party of Italy in 1921, but also served as its general secretary. Up until the 1990s, the Communist Party of Italy was very active, for a long time maintaining its position as the country's second largest political party. In 1991, the party was renamed the Democratic Party of the Left. Germany is no exception. It is the birthplace of Marx and Engels, and home to the influential Frankfurt School, another expression of Marxism. Other European countries, like Spain and Portugal, have active communist political parties with significant influence. All of Europe not only the countries of Eastern Europe, is dominated by communism. Non-communist countries in Northern Europe, Southern Europe, and Western Europe are all intentionally or unintentionally promoting and hosting communist ideologies and policies. To say Europe is, quote, in enemy hands is not an exaggeration.
Detta var första delen av del 10 i NTDs specialserie Hur kommunismens spöke styr världen. Hela delen samt andra avsnitt finns på NTD Sveriges kanaler på YouTube, Facebook och Ganying World. Tack för att ni har tittat och på återseende!